to the Blackhouse on 106.1 FM. We're on Access, Wellington Access Radio. And today we have a full house. We've got a really big house here to talk about dating in the diaspora. In the room today we have, from the front of your screen, we've got Baz, we've got Davian, we've got Sasha, Lulu, and London.
Hello.
Now,
calling attendance.
Yes, and also today behind the camera we've got Vivek. So today we're having a little chat about dating in New Zealand, and what we all have in common is we're all people of colour. A lot of us have history that goes back to Africa.
All of us.
All of us.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Human race.
Yeah.
Human race.
We're human beings. Do we start with what our population size is? Do you think that's a good place to start?
You mean Wellington or New Zealand?
New Zealand. Like that
5 mil.
Yeah, that's the population of New Zealand.
Yeah.
5 or 6? I was told 6
5
now.
mil, I think.
It's 5.
5.
And most of the people live in Auckland. So
Yeah.
I think 35% of New Zealand, 1.7 mil lives in Auckland.
Wow.
And I think Wellington City is 200,000 people.
We're just a big town.
All of Wellington, Wellington including Aotearoa and the huts, is for 400k.
And I tried to find out if there were any statistics collected anywhere on people of black heritage, specifically, you know, like whether that's African or, you know, Caribbean, the diaspora, the black diaspora. So we have a very interesting category here, and it's called MILA, Middle Eastern, Latin American and African Ethnic Group. When it came to the total amount of people that fall into that group, there's actually 70,332 as of the last census count. And the median age is 30.1, which is probably way closer to your fellas' cohort than mine. And males 35, 600 plus, and females 34, 600 plus. But I can tell you, I've always known there hasn't been enough. I think over the bigger picture, I suspect there's not enough men. New Zealand born of the Mila category, under 15 is 72% of that Mila category. So, but the Mila category I find very problematic. When I was looking at how they collected data on, say, the African group, they have African American. They've got Caribbean, Somali, Eritrean, Ethiopian, Ghanaian, Burundian, Congolese, Sudanese, Zambian, Mauritian, Seychelles, and other South African.
That is really broad. I mean, we're all ethnically diverse and unique, and we can have our own identity, right? But we're just grouped.
I think it's interesting because you're obviously including certain groups of people, but to include anybody, you have to exclude people. And so I think it's interesting that you would talk about like people from like the African diaspora, wherever they are, and then give a list of which ones you're including.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what the stats. Yeah, that's what this says in stats. It also has other.
Also, is it just the ones that have been recorded that have been here in the country?
Yeah, there's other Zimbabwean. I'm assuming that means other than white Zimbabwean. I'm not sure. And just note, a note that I made to myself, a personal observation, is that there is no African New Zealand categorization. There's no Tanzanian, no Ugandan, no Cameroon, no Malawi. Also, under the Latin America category, Afro-Latino is not actually spelled out. And under North African, of indigenous African descent, places like Egypt, Morocco and Algeria are under the Middle East, even though these countries are literally on the African continent.
Yeah.
So interesting. The other day, like, I was having a conversation with my flatmate, and he's like, Morocco is the Middle East, and I was like, no bro, Morocco is like in Africa.
Yeah.
Just right under Spain.
Yeah.
It's like North Africa.
Yeah.
And when you think about how we collect, there is no African New Zealand, but when I looked at the ethnic category of Sudan, for example, I had a look at that. aged under 15, as of the 2018 census, 100% of the respondents were born in New Zealand. I kind of look at the way, like what you just said, the way the data is collected is more to exclude than include. As you know, stats are collected for government use, and it's to measure, monitor and evaluate program uptake, effectiveness of ethnicity, analysing the relationship between ethnicity and other variables, monitors the democratic, social and economic process of ethnic groups, social well-being, health and social welfare, and I would think dating and relationships and things like that are very important to any human being's social welfare.
Yeah.
Now, I've been a long time out of the dating scene in New Zealand, you know, like, let me be honest, let me be serious. That's because when I was growing up, dating was not a thing in New Zealand. What it wasn't dating. Not in the sense that I've learnt to understand dating from the perspective of hearing about it firstly on American television. It wasn't something that we talked about. We weren't quite club the girl over the head and drag her home and that's your wife. We weren't quite that, but we were sort of somewhere between that and nice to meet you. Do you want to come home with me?
Yikes.
There was somewhere there. So the actual ritual of dating, I don't ever recall knowing about.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of things in the way that people go through the different, what do you call it, rituals as you get older and stuff, that some people are exposed, like some people go through marriage and some people don't go through marriage and some people go with childbirth but they don't have marriage and blah blah blah. I think that New Zealand is quite a weird little place. I've seen that now we have dating sites.
Actually, now that you do mention that, in terms of New Zealand, it is quite different in terms of that sense. When you meet a person, they don't ask for your number. They'll ask for your Instagram or Snapchat. There's
Not your number?
No, they don't ask for the number, ever.
Okay.
It's so digital.
Do you know why they wouldn't ask for a number?
I don't know. I think they're just very digital.
Probably safer.
Okay.
I mean, if I as a guy was to approach a woman, I would probably ask for their Instagram because it's a better way to communicate, and also the chances of them giving me their number is less because numbers I think are a bit more personal.
Okay.
It's about
Alright.
it's familiarity.
Mm.
Yeah. You could ask someone for their phone number. There's a safety in asking for something that is less familiar when you're meeting someone. So it's like, hey, like, can I have your IG? Everyone has my IG. Not everyone has my phone number.
Yeah, I read.
Yeah, and so it's like if I give you my IG and then we stop talking, I can very easily block you. You don't have my number. You can't just call me from someone else's phone. Like if I think there's really a problem, you don't have that more personal connection to me.
So how do you navigate the dating scene as a member of the Black diaspora community in New Zealand, considering New Zealand's unique historical and demographic context, where I'm sure in South Africa you are the majority?
Yes, definitely.
What's the status for African Americans in America? Are you a majority?
Oh no, we're not the majority. We're 13%. No.
Yeah, it also depends on like the city, right?
Yes,
Sure.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And yourself? In
Myself.
India? Or Persia?
What?
Which?
Are you majority?
And you'd be the majority, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does that, when you're thinking about dating in New Zealand, or you're going about dating in New Zealand, how is it in the scene? Like, okay, Davian, you go first.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. Me being someone who is queer, I do think sometimes it's a little different. I feel like if there's like a straight man approaching a female or gender non-binary, it could be interesting because sometimes people who are black to others might be seen as threatening, you know. And so there might be that sort of like trying to, hey, I'm safe, it's fine, Yeah, for me, I'm just direct. But I do feel, I want to touch back about the phone and the Instagram. That's such a good point because I feel like phone, as you mentioned, like that is personal, so I feel like it's a natural progression. but then also I'm just nosy, so I want to see what I'm getting myself into as well, you know.
So digital feels safer.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Definitely the dating scene is a bit different for me, but now that you do mention, it is way safer. I've only been here like 6 months, so not really in the dating scene like hard on yet. I'm still like trying to learn the people first, and then we can look into that. But I have been on like dating sites and stuff. I like creating a profile on dating sites. It's gonna take some adapting for me. In South Africa, they approach you like in the streets, wherever you are. Here, it's so digital. Even with friendships, like when I first got here, I was like, okay, I want to know people from like other cultures because I came here with South Africans. When I wanted to like get friends from everywhere else, I had to go on like Bumble, BFF, had to look for friends there.
Explain to the people who are probably listening what the hell is Bumble.
Bumble, some people use it as a dating site. I prefer the friendship side of it. So it's basically just friendship. Like you're just looking for friendship. So you can literally read up on a person and see like their characteristics, like what you were saying in terms of social media, where you can actually see what you're getting yourself into. You see what you guys have similarities with and what you don't have similarities with. Yeah.
And how are you finding it?
I like it. Sorta.
I was just gonna say that I was on the apps for like a year and now I am off of them because I feel like I don't know, like, yeah, it is a lot safer. You sort of, like, get this image of a person, but also there's no risk. And I feel like if there isn't any risk, then you aren't actually wanting to genuinely get to know someone. I feel like kind of what you were saying with asking someone for their number, that's a pretty, like, low-level risk. And I feel like it also shows that, like, you are someone that is gonna put in more intentional effort to get to know someone. And I feel like even though it could be seen as too personal, I feel like at the same time following someone on Instagram and then maybe messaging them, I don't know, like a month after or something is like too impersonal in a way.
So you're trying to be in a relationship with someone, like the whole thing is to take the risk of getting to know someone.
Yeah.
Like the whole idea of being intimate is a risk.
Yeah.
And so you have to take the chance. And yeah.
I agree with that, but it also takes a lot of courage to, because I can approach 100 people and then the 100 people can reject me and that could like make me feel like shit by the end of the day. So I think personally, I wouldn't want to invest until I get to know the person in them like fully. Like, because the amount of times that I've been ghosted on these apps, like, I mean, I'm waiting for my date to show up and like, you know, they don't show up.
Right.
Or like, you know, I text them a couple of hours before our dates.
Yeah.
We've decided, we've been talking, and I'm like, hey, so we on today? And either I don't get a message or I get a message saying, oh, I'm sorry, I won't be able to make it. So, I mean, the thing is like with my experience, I'm very low level investment until I can get to know the person. Like until I'm on the 4th or the 5th date, I'm not gonna take it seriously. Like it's just gonna be very, very like, I'm just getting to know you. Like I barely know who you are. Why should I invest my time and energy in getting into thinking about a person who potentially like, you know, doesn't care maybe.
Right.
Like if it's reciprocal, then you know I would definitely like make the same like show them interest, but like if I'm the one like, you know, double texting, triple texting and being like, hey, you know, this and that, let me initiate plans. And I think on some level it comes down to guys to like initiate plans, because like I've never had any woman on dating app initiate like a date for me. Like it's always me setting it up, everything is me, and then I'm just like always complaining to my flatmate as well. I'm like, it's so much effort, like, you know, it's just burning me out, because like I'm just like doing everything, like, you know, there's so much engineering going into like setting up this whole thing, and like the other person just like walking into it, and I wish like, you know,
and potentially ghosting.
I mean, I honestly now I'm off, because like I'm off, like I was on Tinder and Bumble last couple of months, and now I'm off because like it was stressing me out, and I realized that dating should be a fun process rather than like, you know, a thing that I'm like
trauma-inducing experience from the sounds of it. How much do you think race played a part in that?
I think a huge part, but I'll let the others talk about it first, and I can keep.
It's
talking
really
about it.
interesting
Yeah.
what you said, because I did pull up an article just before I left the house about sexual racism in New Zealand on dating apps. So has anybody else had experiences like that? Or have you all had met wonderful people who are just bloody wonderful?
No.
Like it could be like that too.
I feel like when I was living in the States, I was living in New Orleans, which is a majority BIPOC city for sure, and I feel like the desirability that I got there was much more genuine, and people actually would pursue me because they liked who I was, and I feel like here it's like I can't count the amount of times here that I've been called like exotic by like some like
So they
white
want to
cis man.
fetishize.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, is that a unanimous yes from both
That is
male
very
and female?
female.
And
Yeah, look, because here's the thing.
and gay people?
Yeah, and the gays. But yeah, like with my experience on dating apps, you know, I feel like I get to meet a nice amount of people. We go on dates, blah, blah, blah. But I always feel like sometimes there's this fetishization where it's like I just want to tick it off my list. I never slept with a black man before, and I'm like,
Oh, right.
why do we have to? I thought I was like, ooh, I'm popular. Nah, it's just it's just a fetish. Just like I feel like if you're in a majority place where you know it's BIPOC or black, I feel like sometimes it is more genuine because it's not just because you're black. It could be like, okay, well you're black. All right, so what else is different about you? You know?
Yeah.
And would you think you know, a large part of that too has to do with that we are largely a white population?
It's a country that's cut off, mainly. And
Yeah.
and the biggest influence is Australia, which is not the best influence.
No. Well, I lived there. It was much more freeing for me to be in Australia than in New Zealand.
Really?
But it's not. Did you notice
Yes,
that too?
you know what? Because like living in Dunedin, especially people are like, oh, I was moving to Australia. Like Australia's so racist. Be prepared. I'm like, bro, I've had the most racism I've ever experienced in my life in New Zealand. It's just people don't want to admit it because it's like, oh, we're not racist here. We're casually racist.
Well, apparently we don't collect racial data. We only collect ethnic data.
Right. Yeah.
So how can you talk about race if you're not collecting racial data?
Exactly. But yeah, like you mentioned with Australia, I found that it was actually quite open. I lived in Melbourne, which is like very diverse and cosmopolitan. But it was like I didn't feel any type of way, but still fetishized because white people.
It does, but going back to your question, it does play a huge part.
Because that was actually the next question.
Being of color puts you in a category. So like not everyone's gonna be into the way you look, or like is probably gonna be familiar with taking a chance on getting to know you. Because if if a person's like, you know, raised in a white family, probably like this is just a hypothesis, raised in a white family, haven't really seen like people of color around them, they are probably more likely to engage or build relationships with other whites than you know, someone who looks different, or like, you know.
Yeah, we never. I think also that's a really interesting point that you brought up, because we never look at that process of Pākehā white people, European, only going out with Pākehā white people, European. But if we are not interested in white people, then somehow there's this reverse racism.
Yo!
Does that
Nah, reverse
make any
racism
sense?
doesn't exist.
Well, we know
That's
that.
bullshit.
We all know that in this room, but you know what I mean? So, like, I think that's...
So white people are calling out colored people for not going out with them?
Oh, yeah.
Really? In New Zealand?
Oh, yeah.
Look,
Wait.
I've experienced that in America and here. Back in the States, so there was this, you know, he was black and he was dating an East Asian partner. And then this white guy was like, that Asian guy should be with the white man the way that God intended. I'm like, bro, that's so weird. Because I don't know if it's the entitlement or what, you know, not all white people bad, but there's some that are, and we witness them. But just the entitlement, like, why are you not like, that's why I'm happy with my partner. When we walk down the street, I'm like, you know, it's like, it's black in Nepal. Oh, you thought you were invited? Ha, psych, you got played. Like, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, but it is definitely that, and I see that, and people say it. They think, well, why aren't you dating a white person? I mean, why is that a thing? Why do I, like, my God, my colleague. I was like, oh yeah, so this is the person I'm dating. This is where he's from. Blah blah blah. And all these things like, oh, well, why don't you try to date a Kiwi? And I knew what she meant by that. She didn't mean just a New Zealander. She meant white Pakia, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, why is that a thing? Why do I have to? You know, maybe
There's
I'm not.
probably a lot of historical precedent for that. I can always share that article I shared with you guys on the Blackhouse.
Such an out-of-pocket question, too, because it's just like, why does it matter to you? Like, why would you ask me that question?
Yeah, exactly. What answer do you expect?
What about you guys?
For me, it's on the reverse, where it's like when you do reject a person, it's like you're rejecting me because I'm white or because I'm this. It even happens like even with Africans, where it's like certain parts of Africa, I feel South Africans will reject them because they are certain, like from a certain part of Africa. And no, I can just say no. No is a full sentence. Sometimes you don't get that.
Yeah.
So sometimes I don't even feel like I need to explain that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what is your thought process there? I'm really curious to know.
My thought process on what specifically?
Around like that whole situation that you just explained.
I'm just gonna keep rejecting until I get what I want.
Right.
Come on now. You know?
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle. I'm allowed to.
What about you? Well, actually, no, London. What's your experiences been like?
But just dating here in New Zealand.
Yeah, dating. Do you date in here? Do you date in New Zealand? Or?
Yeah, I've dated here in New Zealand. So I've lived in Sacramento, which is like a really diverse people of like who are BIPOC, but like everyone is in California or in Sacramento. Then I've also lived in Montana, which is just like mostly white, some native people, like just very homogenous. And so I've had experiences dating. I think dating here is more like dating in Montana, because it's mostly white people. And I think what I worry about is kind of the fetishization of like, why are you dating me? Why are you avoiding me? And there's just kind of like...
Do you ask the question?
I mean, if it gets to that point, and like, for example, I was talking to this chick on Hinge. This was like last week.
This is another
and
dating
it's
site?
a dating app.
Okay.
And she messaged me, she liked me first. And I noticed on her app, one of the prompts said, it's like I'm convinced that, and then her answer was that I'll never get over the jungle fever.
No!
So then...
No.
Whoa.
So then I
major red flag.
And so then I matched with her, and I was like... One of the persons that I was like, I have to ask, like, what is this about? Like, what...
Well, what did you think it was about when you saw it?
Well, it's just like...
Did you think it was about watching a movie?
Just like... And I'm like, I think the red flag is like, do you just like go around just like trying to like hook up with like people of color because it's like a fun thing to you?
But why were you interested?
I wanted to ask the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I haven't talked to her since last week. I wanted to ask. I was like, in my head, I was like, that's a really bold thing to put on your profile.
It is.
You know,
it's very overtly racist.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
by a New Zealand context.
Yeah, I think in any context.
Yeah.
It was just weird. But I think when I'm dating, like, I look out for that. I'm always kind of wondering how people perceive me. And I think one thing that happens in life is that people want you to be who they expect you to be, right?
The profiling.
And so I think because I'm a black guy, I've got like a deep voice, I'm like a bigger kind of guy, I think people expect me to be like gruff and like mean, or to like I don't know it, but I feel like
a rapper that wears gold chains.
But I feel like a lot of times when I meet people who I'm interested in, it's like I don't meet their expectations of like what they think being with a black person or like a black man is going to be, and that they are subsequently disappointed by like who I actually am. Getting to know people, dating people.
Yeah.
And so you just have to be careful about who you let yourself be around. And so I think when I'm here in New Zealand, it's kind of the same thing. It's just like, if you're blind, I'm sure like, you know, you walk down the street, people either like look at you or they don't look at you.
Yes!
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
There's no in between.
Yeah.
Either
Yeah.
you're staring or you're just avoiding me.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
There's no in
okay.
between.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a difference, and we don't have an African man from Africa in here, which I wanted, but do you think there's a difference between the way African Americans are treated and African men are treated?
Ooh.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, what
I
do
think-
what do you see?
Oh, are we talking about just here in New Zealand? I don't know. I feel like
I'm ready.
I feel like there's a
In the
vibe.
date, if we're keeping it in the dating environment.
I feel like the conversations that I hear about African men
Mm.
are usually they are talked about very negatively.
Mhm.
Like they're often perceived to be very predatorial, very creepy, very like over sexualized in like a very negative way.
I wholeheartedly agree. I do feel like there is such a thing as American privilege at times. And I feel like sometimes people will be like, oh, well, that person's from that man is African, so you immediately assume, okay, well, it's kind of like you said, predatory. But it's that whole, like, you profile, and you think you expect someone to be something that they're not. Like, I remember I was at the grocery store once in Dunedin, and this lady, she was oversimplifying everything because she didn't think I spoke English. And then all of a sudden she hears my accent, and she's like, oh, I'm like, why did your demeanor change? You know, so it does. I think that would be a difference between being, you know, African American or African British French versus African, because people have demonized our native continent.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, Sashi, you're Haitian American and you're South African, Lulu. Do you think there's a difference in the way that you're treated on the dating sites between the two of you, or is the experience today as young black women in New Zealand, is it like the men, or is it a different sort of experience?
I feel like my identity is pretty contextual, and so if I'm at home with my Haitian family and with my dad's side of the family, I feel like I play much more of a traditional, like, good kid type of role. I think here, to most like Pakeha and white people and people that I meet, because of the way that I talk, they just assume that I'm a black American, and then if I get into it with them, I tell them about living in Haiti and being born there and everything. But yeah, I think also, again, because I lived with my mom mostly growing up, I have learned how to like date in a more, I guess, traditional, like non-traditional Western way. And so sometimes, yeah, when I talk to other women or femme people from the African continent, I do notice a lot of differences in like what we expect from people in New Zealand, or like what I guess is like normal.
Give me some examples. Give us some examples of what you mean. I mean, I could give you examples, but you know, I'm talking about before the technology era, so everybody had to give you your phone number. Otherwise, you'd never see them again. But, you know, like, so this is a completely different sort of thing today. So, what are some examples of?
I mean, I feel like the biggest one that I notice is just like, you know, like relating to people, and even like my coworkers. I feel like sometimes I have, you know, like I'll have a conversation with like a white Pakeha man who like is maybe a little bit of like a culture vulture and like has like, you know, the Air Force Ones and like thinks he's like Jack Harlow, and like we'll talk about all of that stuff, and like he'll see that side of me. But then if I talk to, you know, someone else, like a boy from South Africa or Tanzania, the conversation shifts and they're much more interested in, yeah, like what Haiti is like and like why I'm here. Even if I talk to like Pacific Islanders, we talk a lot about like the parallels between island cultures.
Right. Which there would be a lot, right?
Yeah, there is a lot. And I feel like, yeah, like just showing different sides of myself. But then also I think it's different because I am a queer person, and so then dating queer people here I feel like is an even, I don't know, whole different game. Whole different game. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, for me, I
She's quietly waiting in the wings.
I just find it, like some of the jokes that they make, like the pickup lines, they're boring. Like, like you're trying to relate to me, but some of the things you say, it's just like there's so much more to South Africa and South African black women specifically. You could try to like talk to me like a human and get to know me more, and you'll understand those parts. So sometimes, like this one time, this guy on Hinge, we match, and then he's like, "Oh, you're from Africa." I literally unmatched him immediately because it's a type of thing that tends to happen a lot where they like, you're from Africa. There's so many places in Africa.
Yeah.
There are so many different identities to Africa. There's like so much. So I find that part really annoying.
So you're saying that this guy matched with you because he wanted to meet people from Africa?
I don't even want to know further. As to
So could we say that's a red flag?
that's a red flag for me.
I think it's interesting that, like, because if he's on your profile, like, did it say on the profile that you were from Africa?
From South Africa.
So then, like, you don't need to start the conversation by saying,
Right.
"Oh, hey, you're from Africa," which then you also forgot the South part, saying that you are not really thinking about. Yeah.
And I often get confused about what New Zealanders actually know about geology, because even when people would ask, you know, what's your background, and I'd say Tanzania, and they'd say, where's that? And I say East Africa. My mum's New Zealand and my dad's East African, and then they'd say, where in South Africa is Tanzania? I said, it's not in South Africa, it's in East Africa, it's a whole other part of Africa.
Yeah.
So when I see other African on stats, or other South African on stats, I'm like, was that the mistake of the person in stats? Thinking that the rest of Africa resides somewhere within the borders of South Africa?
Tanzania is other South African.
Because I would think South Africans who are black and, you know, indigenous to South Africa are the South Africans, and everybody else who came there are the other South Africans. I'm like a little bit confused with that status. So, Baz, I know you got lots to say.
It's hard to answer, like, when someone asks me where you're from, and I'm like, I don't know how to answer that.
And
There's
this,
so many things.
like, is because it's really interesting. Like, before I came here, we pulled up this thing about sexual racism in New Zealand and in the dating apps. And what you were describing to us, to me, sounds like sexual racism. Very
Like,
overt.
when I reach the point where we start discussing, if I wouldn't tell people upfront what my ethnic background is. I need to reach a certain level of comfort. But when I do tell people that I'm part Persian, they're like, "Wow, Persians are stunning," and I'm like, "So are Indians."
You slide it in there.
And that's happened to me. And they're like, "Whoa, you know, like Persians are stunning, this and that," and whoa, like cool. Like,
Yeah, they
but
watched all 300
that's
movies.
that's very reductive. Like, that's got nothing to do with my personality whatsoever. It's just like the way I probably look, or like, you know, some features mixed up here and there.
So, are you saying that on your Persian side, you're getting fetished?
Yeah, because
And the Indian side, you're getting ghosted?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Indians are like the... I mean, Indian men have a very, very bad reputation. So...
A bad reputation or a bad profile?
A bad profile, reputation, like whatever you... I think being a minority, like, you know, you're always constantly in a spotlight effect. You're like constantly in a spotlight. So like a bunch of like your community people doing wrong just ruins the name for the entire like 10 people out there.
Yeah.
So 2 people being bad would make the others look bad as well. So it's like, you know, like Muslims have like... people have Islamophobic sentiments because a certain section of Muslims are being radical and like whatever they're doing. But like that doesn't make every Muslim a terrorist or you know, whatever. So it's similar, like, you know, but people have like very narrow-minded views, and they're just like, I mean, biases is a part of like human nature. Like, you know, you will constantly form biases about, project biases and like form biases about people and communities. And the moment like you see a certain section of that specific community, or there's a minority who are acting a certain way, you're bound to like humans, like if you're not curious to know, or like if you're not open enough, you'll just form a bias, and like that community will just become like a stereotyped, like these are they're probably like that,
like rednecks.
I mean, most Kiwis are like
Rednecks.
most Kiwis are like that. So yeah, I mean, so but then Persians are like a very small number. Like there's like 10 Persians in Wellington, I guess, because I went for a Persian party and there were like 10 of them. But yeah, so and it's interesting because like people can't really figure out where I'm from until I open my mouth, and the Indian accent sort of drops out, and they're like, oh, you are Indian with
No way.
So like if I'm on dating apps, they're just like very curious, like Moroccan or Egyptian. That's what I mostly get. I love playing a guess game now. I'm just like, guess where I'm from.
Yeah.
If you guess where I'm from, like I'll probably get us a meal, something.
You let them figure it out.
Yeah.
It sounds, from my perspective as an older woman that's grown up here, it sounds traumatic.
Glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah. We were talking about something earlier that I really wanted to touch on.
Yeah.
Because being of color, being black specifically, being Indian, Persian, you see these things that are on certain dating apps. Like remember we were talking about the no blacks, no Asians.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's
really?
That's a
thing. Yeah. Oh well, I mean it's on the grinder, so you wouldn't know.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
And also I've sent the article to the Blackhouse.
No blacks, no Asians. That's
no blacks,
this
no
person
Asians.
did not. This trend did not get struck down because it was racist.
Right. They didn't get the memo. They kept trending.
Really?
Welcome to New Zealand.
And this is still a thing.
Oh yeah, you go on different apps and they will, like you said, people have these profiles and they'll say, oh wow, okay, we know black people, we know Indians, we know what that is. So like, nah, we won't go in. It's like what you.
But I mean, like I sort of think about it in the real world when you're not online. That behavior is out there anyway.
Yeah.
Whether they say it or don't say it.
It does exist.
Online, you get to the point.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like most of the people that I've interacted with would maybe feel brave enough to like say something to me online, but maybe not to my face. And maybe in person, their behavior will sort of like allude to what they don't want to like blatantly say outright. And so then I can sort of like suss out the situation that way. But yeah, I feel like I've been fortunate enough where people haven't like blatantly said anything super racist to me besides that, I'm exotic. And then that's when I, stop talking to that person.
If you're still here when you're 50, that'll change.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
But with what you just said, in terms of the digital thing, I think that's where I'm struggling.
Right.
In terms of, they can say it to you, like digital, you can have a proper conversation with them.
Yeah, there's like this.
Is that because digitally you haven't met each other, you haven't seen? What do you think is changing that dynamic? From digital to real life? Is it because now they see you and they hadn't seen you?
Yeah.
Or is it other things?
It is because they are very in their phones. Like in the street, you'll walk in New Zealand and everybody's got headphones on. Everybody's on their phone. People don't really interact like in person much here in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So it's going to take some getting used to for me because it is a bit difficult to get to know if I can do this with a person, if we're only like so digital about things. I like the real. I still prefer the real, but I need to adapt as well.
You need to adapt to the digitally, or do you need to just
I need to
stand your
find my balance, I think.
Yeah.
My good balance.
I think also sometimes, at least when I've met people in person for the first time, I feel like it sort of like hits them like, oh wow, like this is what it's actually going to mean to like date a black person in Wellington. And I feel like it, for better or for worse, sometimes I see them like using that experience as a tool of reflection where they can be like, okay, like this is what it actually means to be anti-racist, like this is what I'm gonna have to like deal with all the time. Do I really want to do that? And would it just be easier to like go and date another white person? You know?
So what I'm hearing is this is your experience, right?
Yeah.
That your experience is that some interactions has been like, this is too hard to do.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't even want to do it.
Pretty much. And then it just sort of like boils down into this like situationship thing that like pans out for maybe like 3 months and then it's done.
Right.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting is like I think everyone has their preferences of who they do want to date and who they don't want to date, and I think
I'm very clear on
I
my
think
preferences.
sometimes those preferences fall along like color or ethnic lines, and I think if you were to talk to certain people in the United States, certain like black people in the United States, they would tell you that they only want to date like other black people, and that they have their reasons for that. I think what's interesting though is, and it's kind of what Sasha was just talking about, is that if you are going to be the kind of person that comes online and says no blacks, no Asians, or no this or no that, right? The problem isn't that you have a preference, because everyone's allowed to have their preference, right? Like we all have our preferences. But the difference is that if I'm going to say no blacks, no Asians, it's because it's not that I may not be attracted to them, but it's probably because I don't want to deal with the politics that comes along with dealing with that experience. And so
Do you think young people, you're in your 20s or 30s now?
30s.
So in your 30s, do you think people are really thinking that deeply about it?
I think so.
Yeah?
I think so, 100%. I don't know if it's, I don't even know if it has to be like a deep thought. It just might be like a subconscious thing of like, you know, remember when Ferguson happened? And this is like 2014, right?
Yeah.
I was at a party and it was people I knew, right? Some friends, and they were like, I think they're Mexican, and these people were just finding about Ferguson, and they said to my face, because they were getting ready to move to that area, oh, I thank God I'm not black. And it's just like, these are people I've known for, at that point I think I'd known them for like at least 2 years. These people who I consider to be my friends, but like even that like snap comment. Like, people are constantly, like, race and ethnicity and color, like, those social mechanisms and minutiae are, like, built into who we are. So I don't think it's, like, it's something that you even really need to think about. It's just what is, right? And so it's like, if I'm a person and I know that I don't want to date a black person, a lot of times maybe you don't have to say it, but to be that person that does come out and say it, it's just like a red flag to us. But there's a lot of things that come along with dating a black person. Like, you know, if you end up dating someone who's of color, and then, let's say if you're dating someone who's Muslim, right? And then Trump bans, like, you know, Muslim people in the United States, there's politics that come along with that, and you have to deal with that. And, there's just, it's a baggage, and it's just how do you perceive that baggage from the outside? Is it a negative, or is it just a part of this person's experience? Do you love this person? Do you care about this person? How are you going to manage that yourself?
And even, do you have the capacity to manage it? Depending on how you've been treated in other circumstances as well, right? Yeah.
I want to touch all over this subject because my white ex will never date another black person after me. Because
she get black and then she went back.
I know you're not supposed to, but they did. I would correct him all the time because we're on a flight and he just felt like he could say the N-word, right? And I'm like, no. And so for me, I don't want to have to teach you how to relate. I don't want to have to teach you what's right, what's wrong, and how you are supposed to, how I want to be respected.
Well, I need more. Hold on. Back up. You said you were having a fight?
No, we were on the flight, and he just wanted to like randomly say it out of nowhere. He was like, "Oh,
for no reason."
Yeah, he didn't refer to me as, but he was like, "Oh yeah, the person," and I was like, "Wait, what did you say?"
He used the N-word.
Yeah, he did, and I felt a type of way because I'm like, why would you? First of all, why would you say that in general? But like, we're out in public on this flight, and you gonna say the N-word, and then I had to explain to him, and he didn't get it. He's like, "Oh, it's just a word. You make it so you
How long
give
did you
it
date this
power."
person?
We were dating for over. Ooh, wait a minute. That's a good question. We were 3 years deep. Yeah, and then like even with the parents, I'm like, I don't feel like I have to explain all of this.
On the plane?
On the plane.
You know we're in a close. You can't go anywhere.
I know, right? And he said that, so it's like I don't want to have to deal with that. And do you have the mental, emotional capacity, bandwidth to deal with that luggage?
Yeah.
When I correct you and I tell you, are you gonna be like, nah, I'm just.
Or even, but also on the flip side, do you have the mental capacity to be able to be with somebody that may occasionally blurt out things like this?
Right. And
That's not an occasional blurt.
Yeah.
No.
That's
No, that's not an occasional blurt.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you're willing to be in an interracial whatever, like a polyethnic relationship, then you should be willing to have those experiences, no matter what they are, and you shouldn't perceive them as like inherently negative, right? Like no matter what, like which.
Well, I am
direction it is.
interracial.
Well, yeah. Yeah, but I think
I'm a product of that.
yeah, and I think if you're a BIPOC person, like, you know, you can't turn these things off, right? You can't be like, oh, like, I want to go, like, someone was racist to me in public, and I had a bad experience today at the grocery store or wherever I was, so I want to go home and I just want to, like, sit down and, like, watch TV and, like, get away from all of this and not think about it, because you're going to turn on the TV and then you're going to see something else that relates to your experience, so you can't turn it off. And so I think if you are going to have an interracial relationship, you need to pick your partner appropriately.
Yes.
Because you need to know that your partner is going to be
Yes.
down for you and not have a problem with being down for you. And even if you end up having like difficult conversations about what that means, right? There's that, like, are you down to go through the struggle together when we need to?
Yeah.
And
there's a big difference between that and just having sex.
And just being around for 3 years and you know, because we're having fun, we're having a good time.
Yeah. Speaking as a person who is biracial, my mum's Pākehā and my dad is Tanzanian, funnily, even being born here, my preference since I was quite young has always been black men. And all I had was a photo of my dad, so it could be daddy issues, you know, I don't know. But that's been my physical preference. Just the same as people, and for me it's as real as a sexual preference. I'm heterosexual, I prefer black men, and that's just the way it is. Except I was born here.
Sure.
Right?
Where did you meet them?
Well, I had to work through. I was only the only people that I kind of got along with were Tongan and Fijians. There wasn't very many African people around. When most of the African people came, they were either staying within their own ethnic group. If they were coming as men, single or married men, they were coming with white partners before, I think this was before the work visa thing came out. So the way our immigration thing, has had a huge effect on, do I even meet the people that I prefer? So we had this funny joke amongst some of my friends who are also African New Zealanders, African Brit. I don't know if you heard of the Black Star liner, Marcus Garvey. The Black Star liner that took Africans back to Sierra Leone. I think that's what the Black Star liner was.
Yeah.
Our joke was, we need the Black Star liner to come to New Zealand. This is Antarctica, honey. That is still my preference.
I have a question for you. What was it like for you growing up as a biracial, as a black woman here, dating? And also, I know you spent time in Tanzania. What was that like, going back to Tanzania?
Night and day.
Can you speak on that?
In New Zealand, I was invisible. I was misshapen because my body shape did not approximate Polynesian or Pākehā body shapes. My legs, my thighs were thick, my calves were narrow, my ass was big, my waist was thin. That was not the body type for white New Zealand. And the one that was reflected. And even I remember being in high school, and as you guys play on your phones, in high school when I first started, what they used to do was we used to read wedding magazines. And girls in Form 3, which is, I don't know, year 8, They would be planning their weddings. You know, oh, I'm going to have this dress and I'm going to have it look like that in third form. And me, I couldn't mentally picture myself in a wedding dress because nothing that I saw actually reflected that. Because my stepfather was such a rabid racist, and all his friends. Like I told you that story about sitting in the well and listening to the old men talk about their coloured children and the girls that would actually make wives one day and the ones that wouldn't. So the messaging for me is everything about me that made me black was ugly, but nothing made me want to go and be with the white guy. Nothing made me want to be anything else but what I was. And when I went to Africa, it all made sense because all my sisters are shaped exactly like me. I was the thing that was out of...
Right, yeah. Fish out of water here, because you're different. You go there, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it was completely different. It was like I got absolutely traumatized walking through Dar es Salaam because so many guys were trying to grab me and ask me on a date. And I was like, had my cap on, my backpack, I flipped it around like this, and I'm just to my sister, I want to go home. I'm not used to it. I don't know how to deal with that attention. In New Zealand, I have no attention, but when I speak to African American men, they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I'm living New Zealand. I was the only black kid in every town, suburb, city, school that I went to. So I was the odd one out, and then along came Beyonce. And suddenly all of that was normalized.
Because that's what they want now.
That's what
you
they
talking
want.
about calves and ass and no waist. I'm like, that's what people pay doctors for.